45:49.
Yeah, we had two.
That was the year we first experienced a World Championship 70.3 Ironman. And once we did, we were hooked and we wanted more.
We were looking at the calendar for 2020 when New Zealand was announced as the host for the 2020 Ironman 70.3 World Championship. And for both of us, going to Oceania, Australia, New Zealand is a bucket list item. It was at the time, it still is now.
High on the bucket list.
And we wanted to pair our love for triathlon, the experience we had in South Africa, and take that to New Zealand and experience what we hope to be our second World Championship in New Zealand in 2020. So much so that we had some wristbands that we were already wearing. We had already raced Waco 70.3 with an attempt to qualify, and we didn't. But we were setting our sights and training really solidly for the early part of 2020 to get that slot. But
2020 happened and the New Zealand got pushed to 2024. But that was just announced that it would be back in New Zealand a year ago.
We weren't sure if we were gonna wait and try for New Zealand. And we also knew that we wanted to go to Finland, and we happened to get a few good breaks to go our way last season, qualified to Finland and went to Finland and had the time of a lifetime. And once we finished the race in Finland, got back to the States, we had some hard conversations about, do we want to still focus on trying to qualify for New Zealand, knowing that it's a big financial impact to do 2 consecutive years of international travel.
Triathlon is our love. This is what we do every day. This is what gets us up in the morning. We absolutely love every aspect of swim, bike, run. And you know what? We said to ourselves, let's not pass on any opportunity. If it happens, amazing. If it doesn't, that's how it falls, but let's at least set ourselves up for the chance to do it.
Now, going into 2024, a lot of things have changed in the landscape of qualifying for a 70.3 World Championship. In past seasons, there have been a lot of women for tri slots available. So much so that last year in Chattanooga, there were 10 slots in my age group, and there were 9 slots in Caitlin's age group. I just barely eked out earning a slot. As you know, probably, Caitlin did not get her slot in Chattanooga, went to Boulder a few weeks later and got her slot there so that we could both race in Finland together. But for 2024, there are significantly fewer slots available.
Last year in Chattanooga 2023, there were 50 additional women for tri slots.
And in 2024, there were 15 women for tri slots.
Considerably fewer. So that meant that Tiffany and I both had to have our perfect race and maybe a little luck on our side.
And in the whole process of training for Ironman 70.3 Chattanooga, we actually didn't get caught up in the hype of our goal is to qualify. We just focused on nailing the workouts, focusing on each session, focusing on the small process goals along the way. And when we showed up in Chattanooga, we didn't even mention New Zealand. I don't think that ever was any part of the conversation that if we don't qualify, it's gonna be a bust. If we don't get our slots, we're gonna go chasing, we're gonna go to Boulder, we're gonna go to Des Moines or whatever. You know, we kind of both, I guess, had this quiet sense of we're gonna let the day play out and see what happens and take what comes our way.
When I crossed that line and I saw how great of a day I had, it was a 180 from Chattanooga 2023. 2023 just fell apart for me. That was not the case this past weekend, and I was on cloud 9, and I knew that I laid it all out there. I executed every bit of that race to a T, and the rest was out of my hands.
Turns out we both pretty much had the perfect day. I finally got under 6 hours after the last few years really trying to claw back to getting under that 6 hour mark. So when I crossed the finish line in Chattanooga, I knew whatever happened at the slot allocation and roll down, I would be okay with it, and I was going to accept it and not try to go chase. We went home, took showers, I took a little power nap, recharged, and then we went to the ever enduring awards, slot allocation, roll down, and women for try presentations.
I don't think there's any roller coaster like a slot allocation roller coaster. There are highs, there are lows, there are ups, downs. It's all over the place. Because they start at the oldest age group and they work themselves down. There were 2 slots for each of our age group, but then an additional 2 slots each for women for try. Neither of us got the first 2 slots in our age group, and so we had to wait until the very end for the women for try slots to roll down. We kind of got close on the first round, and so we kind of got hyped, and we're like, well, maybe, and then it wasn't. And then we had to sit and wait, and then they called all the women that wanted to go to the front row and have a seat so they could have a head count, because there were only so many slots.
2 of us were hoping to get 2 of those remaining 15 slots. I recall that they left my age group at 17, so I knew I needed about 17 more slots to roll for it to get to me. With 2 slots available, I felt okay, but I wasn't necessarily confident that it was really gonna roll all the way to me. They started calling out names. I could sense that my heart rate was getting elevated. I put my hand on Caitlin's shoulder, and I think you can actually see my breath just get heavier. I mean, my heart rate was probably close to what it was crossing the finish line. It was so intense, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. I wasn't looking at the tracker at that point, but I remember the last name ahead of me. They called her name.
Stephanie Smith.
Silence. And then I think I told Caitlin, just kind of whispered under my breath, the next one's me, it's me. I pull up, that's me.
Tiffany Saunders.
And sure enough, they called my name, and I had a lot of emotion at the finish line, but somehow I think I topped that when they called my name for New Zealand. Because honestly, when the day started, when the weekend started, when the trip started to go to Chattanooga, I really did not think that I would get a slot. Even on my best day, I just didn't think there were enough slots to give me a chance. And the fact that it did, that I did everything right for myself on race day, that I put in a performance to be proud of, and I got that slot. I think what's most rewarding is that this year was the hardest year ever it was to qualify for a 70.3 World Championship. And even more satisfying and gratifying is the fact that I did it coaching us on the hardest year. And I'm going to New Zealand.
So we sat through an age group, and then came mine. We actually kind of started chatting up a little bit with the lady that was next to us, and it turned out she was in my age group and she finished better than I did. Her name was called and she immediately stood up and took it. And then the name after that was called, and I'm starting doing the math and the placement in my head. I think you can even see me kind of mouth the positions as the names are called, and I knew when they called position number 23, she wasn't there, and I was number 24.
One more. Caitlin Saunders.
Yes!
Is that you, Caitlin?
That's me!
Boom!
I got the last slot. And we're both going to New Zealand.
Yeah, we are. We're both racing in New Zealand. We don't have to go chasing. You don't have to.
I know.
And I was at the registration table because I was ahead of Caitlin and had to claim my slot. Mm-hmm. And we have the agreement that regardless, if either one of us gets a slot and one of us doesn't, we're still going to take it and go because we don't want to pass up the opportunity. But I felt the letdown last year when it was just me getting the slot, and I didn't want to feel that again. But I also knew that this one
I didn't want to feel that again.
had the best race, so I knew that it might not sting as much, but I didn't want it to happen without her. We just had the moment we had hoped for last year, but like I said, it was so much sweeter this year because we did it our way, and it was so much harder to get what we wanted this year. And we did it because we trusted each other all these months leading up to this moment. All these years we waited. We've got a bottle of New Zealand wine that we've had since 2019 that we were gonna pop if we ever qualified. And guess what? We're gonna drink some wine this weekend.
Yeah, we've been storing that thing for 5 years in a cold, dark place, and it's ready to pop. But I gotta admit, it is a sweet, sweet feeling to get both these slots at the same race and experience that together. Golly, the weight was lifted. You know, we would have been excited for either, however it fell, but to both get that slot. Again, we did that in 2018 at Lubbock, and I don't know if anything will ever top that feeling, but man, it got close in Chattanooga. It was a rush.
I still think qualifying in 2018 in Lubbock for South Africa, that we both did it. We both were so naive to the whole process and the experience. Nothing will ever top that. But you're right. Qualifying for New Zealand in Chattanooga this year, it's a pretty close second. And I'm just over the moon and very proud. Like, I am proud of my result, and I feel like this is so deserved.
Both well earned.
For you especially, because you could have let your past two experiences in Chattanooga play mind games, but you were determined, and I saw you in our training, I saw you in our lead up, and I could see something different in you, that you were gonna go after it. You were gonna control the race and not let the race control you. And I got the updates all day long as I was out on the course. And your great day fueled my great day. And we haven't been ambiguous this year intentionally. We really only signed up for 70.3 Chattanooga, and we've been telling people really the rest of our season hinges on what happens at Chattanooga. Some of the things that we discussed were potentially, if we did not qualify for New Zealand, was that we would do a full Ironman in the fall, and we were actually eyeing Chattanooga as a full Ironman if we didn't qualify. We've talked about doing a relay with Colin, which we will still do, and other races as well. We haven't quite set what our next race will be, but we do know for sure in December we will be towing the line in Taupō, New Zealand.